So from that point, we get to the next most popular name, and this name is often pronounced Elohim. And as I used to improperly pronounce, Allahayim. Well, let's talk about the Elohim, Allahayim. Now, we spell this word Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem. And that is the Aleph, which is the A sound, short A, L, H, Y, M. Now, I've always asked when I go through some of my biblical hermeneutics, and you can go back through lesson series 203 to see some of the things I speak here. I often ask, well, who is the plural? Because in the beginning of the book, the first line of the first page of the first chapter, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. In Hebrew, that's often translated as Bereshit bara Elohim. So Elohim exists and is presented before Yahweh. Yahweh is not even presented before the Elohim. But now Elohim is plural. And I always ask, who are the we? Who are the we in the beginning of creation? Who are the we that is presented in the first line of this book? So now we get into the proper translation or overstand of this word. And Ki-Ba-Ntu, Ki-Kongo, this word would mean the spirits, ancestors, and life essence. See, spirit means just life essence. Whatever keeps you alive and whatever you are is your spirit. It ain't talking about clear people inside of you that float up when you die. It ain't talking about that. So when we look at it, we have several different dialects showing you several different pronunciations. And all of them apply in the Ki-Ba-Ntu, Ki-Kongo languages. Now, what's interesting is, as I've stated before, and I will state again, and it could be readily researched, that genetically, linguistically, archaeologically, and anthropologically, the San people, Khoi and San, are the oldest people on Earth Mother. The San DNA goes back so far that it says that the DNA of the San people gets basically blurred in, and DNA testing even today in 2011 cannot tell how old the San people are. That's beautiful. So if we look at the translations of this word, I see in isiZulu a few words that mean the same thing. First, we look at the word yolo. Yolo. Because again, if we take this language of Hebrew, spell right to left, oftentimes the translations are spelled left to right. Because remember, a lot of these languages were not written. They were oral. So when we look at the yolo, this is where we get the M, mem, yod, y, o, which is actually the hey sound as a vowel, lamed, l, and the aleph on the end would be the o, yolo. And this means the uncanny supernatural being. Think about it. An uncanny supernatural being. Isn't that your definition of a spirit? So then we look at it, if we spell it also, we get uloya amma or uloyama, which means the life essence and spirits. Same word. But where it gets interesting is who the Zulu people are actually talking about when they speak of this Elohim, Allahayim. They're actually speaking about their ancestors who have, through traditions, been always taught to be the ancestors of all people. And these ancestors to the Zulu were called Ilawama or Amalawu. Amalawu. And this word Ilawu, I-L-A-W-U, look it up, it means Khoi and San. So they know that their ancestors who came before all were the Khoi and the San, the Amalawu. So let's continue on. Again, I said this is a Yoruba language. This is a Yoruba book. The Hebrews are the Yoruba and Dogon people. So I have to prove that to you and show you as I go along here. The Yoruba people, they have a concept that is called the spirits dwelling within us. And what this is called is Luomi. Luo. Luwo. And it's also Omiluwo. The spirits dwelling within us. Now, what is interesting is, before I get to the Kiswahili, is because this word sounds very much so like the voodoo that so many people demonize. The Great Bible is the book of voodoo. It's the ancient African tradition. See, the voodoo belief, if you're familiar, you have a spirit watching over you, and it is called the Loa. This is where it comes from. These are the different pronunciation of Loa. You also have Lua. You also have Luwo, and it means the spirit watching over you. So the spirit watching over you is also the spirit within, the life essence of you. So with this in mind about the Yoruba concept of the Luwo, how can we directly relate that to the Dogon if they are both of the same origin? Now, before I continue, I would like to say this and clear this up, because it burns me up when I hear it, but I understand the protocol and the reasoning. A lot of people think that our people were primitive apes. They think that our people just lived in trees and under rocks until the white man came around. And we have to understand that this is far from the case. With this in mind, you must know that the Yoruba, Dogon, all peoples of Ku-Kongo understood that their ancestors were real people. When these ignorant folks come around talking about space reptiles and half human, half animal beings coming in spacecrafts, helping people build these monuments and buildings throughout Earth Mother, these Zachariah Sitchins and these Urantia fairy tale writers and these Graham Hancocks and all of these pyramid code writers and followers, all they're basically doing is adhering to the European protocol to take you away from our story. Our story is not for a European to explain to us anyway. Our story is not for an Arab to explain to us anyway. But they do so because they have to do so with self-inclusion. And if they can figure out how we got here, then they can say they are the ones that imparted the greatest knowledge and wisdom to this earth. It's protocol. You must understand that this whole concept about DNA is not new. The knowledge about genetics is not new. Nothing about the stars that they're figuring out with these Hubble and Hubble 2 telescopes is new. This has always been known. This is why they try and they fail every time they try to rebuild and repair the monuments our people left throughout Earth Mother. So since they can't figure it out, they want to attribute it to the space terrestrial super green people that supposed to have come down to Atlantis and Lemuria and all these different places to bring the Bakongo of Ku-Kongo out of savagery and barbarism into civilization. So don't let them do it to you, family. Don't let them do it to you. Okay? So oftentimes when they spoke about their beginnings, they spoke about their ancestors as real people. But as well, they had mythology. So there was a dualistic concept oftentimes when they spoke their mythologies and their legends and traditions. So we have to keep this in mind because this is an African-centered concept, an African-centered way of thinking. There's a dualistic way of thinking. So with this, I have to say that the Yoruba and the Dogon both had mythological reasonings for their origins as well as understanding their real people, flesh and blood genetic origins. We'll start with the Igbo as we get into the agglutination of this word Elohim or Elohim. In the Igbo language, who are very closely related to the Yoruba, they have a word Allah. And the word Allah obviously is the Aleph Lamed, or the first two letters of this word Elohim. So this Allah to the Igbo was the mother of earth. It was the mother of the underworld, the protector of the underworld, of the harvest and fertility of all things that were living. Now, Allah is also responsible for making the child grow in the womb. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's a connection, but I'm not talking about the Muslim Allah. I don't know if there is a relation. I haven't done enough research, but I just want you to make that distinction as I go along through this translation of these languages. So anyway, as I said, the Yoruba and the Dogon, same people. So we have a word Allah. The next word I come to is Amma. And Amma would represent the Hey Yod Mem, or just the Yod Mem at the end of Elohim or Elohim. And Amma is the Dogon word for the cosmic egg. See, it gets very intricate with the Dogon mythology. See, the cosmic egg, Amma, vibrated and created all things of the universe. So Amma is considered the source of the universe. Now, as I continue along with this, you have to take notice because, again, we are relating the Hebrew language, showing how it is a pure Ki-Ba-Ntu Ki-Kongo language, which means it was a pure concept derived from Ba-Kongo people. So this book called the Ta'anga, you call the Old Testament, contains that first book of Genesis. And in this book of Genesis, I want you to take notice of the teachings in that first story and what I'm explaining about the Dogon and Yoruba, and showing the closeness and the exactness of the two stories, just to show a little extra proof of where the origins of that book really are, and it derives from the Yoruba and the Dogon people. So anyway, Amma, the creator, the source of the universe, the cosmic egg from which all things hatched. Now, with this, Amma is also the creator of the powers of creation, which you call gods and goddesses, but the creator of all powers of creation. And in the Yoruba language, these are called Orishas. Now, Amma is also responsible for the creation of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So I want you to take a note of when you're going through Genesis chapter 1, when it says, let there be light to light the firmament, and there should be a greater light to rule the day, a lesser light to rule the night, and there were stars also. I want you to take notice of how everything came from Allah and Amma. So where I'm going with this is this word, as we say Elohim or Elohim, if we relate it to the Dogon and Yoruba, it is actually an amalgamation of those two languages because they have the same source of their language. So if we take that and pronounce it that way, it will be called Allah Amma. Allah Amma. You understand? So as I said, we get to Kiswahili and we have another word. Loa Yomo. Loa Yomo, which means the spirit that is within. So oftentimes you see me pronouncing this word, Elohim, Elohim, you'll see me pronounce it, Elohiyomo. And now in Chibemba, and I'm kind of throwing a dart with a blindfold on here, but same concept, same translation. The word combination that would mean the spirit watching over us in Chibemba is Umyeo Loa. Umyeo Loa. M-Y-E-O-L-O-A. What do we have here? Mem, Yod, and the O, which is Hey, L, and then the O-A on the end, the Aleph. Umyeo Loa. So you can see the direct translation of the Hebrew most famous, second most famous deity, Elohim, translated into the proper Bantu languages as Amalawo, Umyolo, Ala Amma, Omilowo, Aloyomo, and Umyeloa.